okay, maybe that's too long, I'm avoiding it for too long, I gotta really figure out what to do with this emotion. And so avoidance for a long time is really harmful. And then just acting out aggressively, right? Just because I'm angry doesn't mean I can act out aggressively. That's what we think, like, oh, I'm just gonna let it out, right? I'm gonna punch a bag. Like, how many people have heard, like, go do boxing if you're angry? It doesn't work. It makes you more angry. Your nervous system is not coming down. You're just getting more and more and more upset. And then you're learning that the only way I'm gonna deal with my anger is to punch something. Okay, next time you don't have a punching bag, what are you gonna do? You're gonna punch a wall. You're gonna punch a person, right? So we can't just depend on verbal aggression or physical aggression to deal with the feeling. We have to do something more healthy. Because in the short term, aggression actually does work. So when people are aggressive with people around them, it's actually gonna get you what you want. You're gonna get your short-term results. They're gonna leave you alone, or they're gonna do what you want. But then long term, that's when it's really hurtful, because you're gonna lose people in your life, you're gonna get hurt, you're gonna get in legal trouble, whatever it is. This is for a lot of us. So just really kind of going into social media. That's the only coping skill I have. I don't have to think about anything. I'm just gonna log on Instagram or TikTok for hours. I'm gonna avoid everything else. That's not very healthy either, because you're just avoiding in a different way. And you're going into this reality life that's not true. People think it's true, and then they start comparing, and that's when it gets much, much worse. And so social media, Facebook, whatever it is, it's an unhealthy way to deal with your emotions. So all of this, I should say, all of this is a part of regulation, meaning I'm doing something, I'm conscious that I'm doing something to help me feel better. Even though maybe some of them are not healthy ways, there are still ways to regulate. So you're actually actively trying to make yourself feel better. But if you think about dysregulation, so that's when we're not even trying to do anything about the feeling is taking over. So this is when we say, or when I said earlier, like, people think you're not in control of your feeling. These are some of these examples. So there's no regulation effort at all. I'm not even trying to fix a situation. I'm not even trying to feel better. I don't even know. I'm not thinking, right? So you have an inability, you're unable to control how you're feeling. And so examples of this, I feel really angry, so I'm gonna act out on it without even thinking about it. So I'm not even trying to make myself feel better. All I want to do is act out on my anger, right? Or on my feeling. So example of this, I'm fighting with somebody, right? And what do I do when I'm not really thinking and I'm just acting out on my anger? If you're fighting with anybody at all, what's an example of doing something that you're going to regret later? Punch them? Okay. Yes, punch them. You say something, yes, thank you. You say something that you're gonna regret later. How many of us have done this? Probably every single one of us, right? We're fighting, we say something really hurtful on purpose, right? Like, I know it's gonna hurt you, so that's why I'm gonna say it. And then I'm gonna regret it. Like, I'm not even thinking to regulate my anger. I'm not thinking at all. I'm just speaking whatever is on my mind. So you're acting too quickly on your emotion. Or, I really hate my job. It's really hard, right? So I'm just gonna quit on a whim. I'm not even gonna think about it. Like, this morning was really tough, whatever. I'm just gonna email my boss, I'm quitting, right? So again, you're acting too quickly. You're not thinking about your emotions or what your options are. And instead of taking it outwardly, you take it inwardly. So I blame myself. I'm stupid, I should have done better, all of these things, that instead of me trying to figure out, well, why am I feeling this way? And all of these regulating skills that I said earlier, we're just taking it inwardly. We're saying it's my fault, I did something wrong, I made the wrong choice. And so you're just increasing your suffering. There's no need, it's unnecessary, because the situation already happened and we're making it worse by thinking these things and, blaming ourselves and all of these things. So again, that's an example of dysregulation, because instead of me trying to feel better, it's all going downhill. There's no getting better from here. And then again, this avoidance piece is like common across the board, because a lot of us just avoid our feelings. We, suppress them for a long, long time. We're not even aware that we're feeling this way. And so, eventually it's going to explode, kind of like a Coke bottle, if you shake it, shake it, shake it. And then you not even just slowly open it, it's going to explode. There's no way. The same thing with your feelings. Like the longer you let it in and it's just being shaken, eventually it's going to explode. And so, unsurprisingly, when we're not regulated, it's going to lead to a lot of poor outcomes, not just with your relationships, with your work, with your health as well. So again, I'm not a medical doctor, but a lot of medical disorders and problems are tied with emotional dysregulation. So when I don't know how to deal with my emotions, I'm not doing anything to learn about it, my health is physically getting worse. And so, if that's enough of a reason for people to work on it, inshallah, it should be. And this is very culturally tied, but a lot of us, and especially males, you have certain beliefs about some emotions, and they're very culturally tied, maybe even people think religiously tied, even though that's not true. And so those beliefs are probably going to keep you stuck and being dysregulated. And when I realize that my beliefs are not actually correct, maybe that's when I can start becoming more and more regulated. Any guess what I'm talking about when I say males especially? About emotions in general, kind of false beliefs or inaccurate beliefs. Nobody has a guess. Do the women know? Maybe the women know. Yeah. Yeah, so crying, feeling sad. What is the belief? Yeah, you're not supposed to cry, you're not allowed to cry. And if you do, then you're weak or, whatever. Right. Yeah. And the opposite is true about anger, right? You're only supposed to show anger, that's the only acceptable feeling. And if a woman is angry, then she's crazy, right? Men are okay to feel angry, women are okay to feel sad, and that's the end of the story. There's no other accepted behavior. But earlier, like I said, all of us are going to feel these things. It's normal. And what we're going to get to towards the end is that it's not the emotion that you can blame if your actions are the ones that are needing to be adjusted. So it's not just because I feel angry doesn't mean I can punch someone, And that's why when we start realizing this, excuse me, then those beliefs can change. Because if you think that feeling angry is the only acceptable form, again, you're going to deal with everything with that anger, and you're not going to go anywhere in life. You're probably going to get stuck in a lot of different areas. This is a little small. I tried to make it wider, but I'll go with it. Or I'll give you an example. So this is just taking it a step further. So another example of regulating is that I'm just going to think about my situation a certain way. So let's say the same example I gave earlier. So I have a test, a medical test, and that's the situation, right? I did a test, I did some tests, and I have no idea what's going to happen. What thoughts could I have? So this is going to be cancer, it's going to be whatever, it's going to be really terrible, I'm going to need surgery, I'm going to need all these things. And so how am I going to feel when I think this way? Scared? What else? Anxious? Worried, sad, maybe even angry, right? Like, why me? If we think of those thoughts. And then what are you gonna have as a physical reaction? So the green part here, which is really tied, like we said, to your emotions. How's your body gonna be for like that week? Exhausted? Are you gonna be sleeping? No sleep, right? Are you gonna be eating? Probably not, right? Or you're going to be overeating, depends on the person. And so your body's not doing well, you're just super stressed out. And so what's going to happen? This is the end of it. So your behavior, what are you going to do? What? Nothing. Yeah, you may end up doing nothing. You're just feeling really awful. You may fight with your family because you're feeling terrible. You're not sleeping, you're not eating. It's a whole week. You may even take it internally, right? You may injure yourself, you may not go to work, or you may do nothing, but you're feeling really awful for a whole week, right? So what if I can't change the situation, right? I can't change the fact that I had this test, something's going on possibly. So the first step of this cycle is I'm just gonna change the red, which are my thoughts. So how can I think in a different way than what I saw originally? So first I thought it was going to be the worst thing in the world. I'm going to die, that kind of thing. I think I'm going to be fine. Yeah. Good. I can't do anything about it. Beautiful. Pray, right. So we're getting to behaviors. Exactly, yeah. So thoughts is up here. Like, what am I thinking? What am I telling myself? I'll talk to someone about it, yeah. What are they going to tell you? You'll be okay, right? Same thoughts. So if I think it'll be fine, even if it's something, it's good to know now than to know later, right? That's one of the things we help people figure out. If you think in a more positive way, you're going to feel better. So how are you going to feel if you're thinking this way? Maybe you're still going to feel stressed out. But are you going to be the same level of stressed out as thinking you're going to die? Probably not. You're going to feel a little stressed out. That's fine. It's a stressful situation. No one is saying you're going to feel great, but you're not going to feel so stressed out. You're going to feel a little stressed out, a little anxious, maybe a little optimistic that, hey, inshallah, things will be fine. We have our faith, we know that everything good, whatever happens is going to be for the best. And so what am I going to feel then? What am I going to feel in my body? How's my body going to be? Probably fine. Maybe I'm not going to sleep so well, but I'm not going to stay up all night being worried. Maybe I'm not going to eat so much, but again, it's not going to be as bad. And then what am I going to do? Maybe I'm going to talk to a friend. Maybe I'm just going to live my life normal, waiting for this test result. Totally fine. And so again, if you think of this whole situation, it doesn't start with the emotion. Maybe it's happening at the same time as the thought, but the thoughts are really the ideas that the thoughts are happening first. So if I think about it in a certain way, I'm going to feel a little differently, and that's going to make me act differently, and therefore I'm going to, be in a more healthy state of being. I think we only have, oh, yes. So we already touched on this a little bit, but there's a lot of incorrect information on emotions in general. We talked about one, which is that men, they're not allowed to feel sad. If you're crying, right, like don't cry like a little girl, stop crying, all of these things. And then the next one is, if I'm emotional, then that's a weakness. I'm weak if I feel anything. I'm weak if I show anything. And this is for everybody, not just males. Even women, they're afraid that they're going to look like an emotional, crazy person, right? But when we all learn that emotions are fine, emotions are normal, then it's actually a strength to be able to say, yeah, I'm not feeling great today, but I'm here. I'm showed up to work, so that should count, right? I'm better than those who maybe did, or I acted better than those who just stayed at home. So it's actually a strength to admit your emotions. And it takes a lot of, it does take bravery to admit that I'm not feeling great today. When you're asked at work, how are you feeling? Oh, how are you guys doing today? We all say the same answer. I'm fine. Even if you're not fine, we don't want to tell anybody how we're feeling. But if you're hungry, you're all like, oh, I'm so hungry, right? It's lunchtime, yay. Like, it's no embarrassment at all to say that you're hungry. But why is it embarrassing to say that I'm not having a great morning? It's not a weakness. We just think that, and so we have this belief that's very incorrect. And again, if I'm having strong emotions, then I'm out of control because the emotions are the ones in control. But again, we already talked about how that's not true. Emotions can't be in control of you, just like your hunger cannot be in control of you. It's just a state of being. It's gonna go away with time, If we actually weight our emotions, most of us within the hour, we're back to feeling relatively okay. Unless something really traumatic is happening or if something really serious. But most of us kind of peak and then we come back within the hour. Some emotions are bad, right? That's another incorrect belief. So feeling jealous, feeling guilty. And of course, we have our Islamic teachings that encourage you to not feel this way. But if we feel this way, does that mean we're a bad person or that we have bad feelings? Probably not. It just means you just have to think about the situation a little differently to feel a little better or to feel differently. Because I should also say one of the myths I didn't write here is that we have to feel good all the time. That's also not correct. And whoever is living life this way is one day going to be unpleasant, unpleasantly surprised. Because we all know, as Muslims especially, right? Life is not easy. We're going to have our tests. You're not meant to live here to live happily and contently. And the afterlife is where we're going to feel that, inshallah. And so when I'm thinking, well, why am I feeling so stressed out all the time? I'm supposed to be happy, right? I'm supposed to be joyful and excited, and that's how life should be. That's incorrect. You're going to feel all sorts of things. And some days you're going to be sad, some days you're going to be happy, some days you're going to be stressed out, some days you're going to be a combination of everything together. So the bigger myth that I think a lot of us in the US especially have is that we have this toxic, positive, expectation that life should be feeling good all the time. And those in the medical field know this already, like pain is not okay. I cannot feel pain. Well, that's not possible. You don't live in some imagination life or in the afterlife yet. Inshallah, we'll all be there. But, you're gonna feel pain in this life, whether it's emotional or physical or whatever. And so it's okay to feel that way. And then this one I like this one because sometimes people think their emotions are truth. So, for example, if I'm feeling embarrassed, then I must have done something wrong. Why else would I feel embarrassed? That's the thought, right? Well, how often do you feel embarrassed? But objectively, you ask a friend, they're like, no, you're fine. You didn't do anything wrong. So just because we feel a certain way, it doesn't mean that's fact and that what happened in your head is the reality. And so the emotions don't tell you the truth. Emotions are just a state of being. Again, you're the one who's able to think clearly. Okay, well, I'm feeling embarrassed, but I actually didn't do anything wrong. All right, it's fine. Same thing with feeling guilty, especially the mom guilt, right? For those of you who are moms, you have a lot of mom guilt. Well, is that always truth? Well, that when you feel guilty, that means you're not doing your job right as a mom. Not. It's just a thing we feel, and we can move on from it. We can learn how to deal with it. It doesn't mean that it's the truth. And so this is the last kind of point that I was saying earlier, is that we often mix up the feeling or the emotion with our actions. And so we put the blame on the feeling. And it's just a lazy excuse out of a situation. Like, oh, I was feeling angry, that's why, I yelled. The emotion didn't make you yell, right? You chose in that situation, whether you were consciously thinking about it or not, that yelling is how I'm going to get out of this situation. So Hajj is really hard, right? And they always tell you in Hajj when you go, oh, Hajj is going to be difficult, you're supposed to be, you're going to feel frustrated, but you can't do anything about it. It's okay to feel mad or frustrated or hot or upset, but the idea is that you're going to have to really control yourself not to do anything about it. So how are we able to do it in Hajj for 5 days, and then we come back and we're like, no, the emotion took over again. No, you were in charge of the feeling over there, and you're able to come back and do that here. That's the whole point. If you're supposed to learn how to, control yourself in all these different ways. And so it's not just, that we can just say, oh, I was sad, and so, I spent all this money online shopping. Like, no, you chose to buy something, to do this thing because you're feeling sad, but the sadness wasn't the cause. And so we can always kind of keep it in mind that I can feel a certain way, but I don't have to act a certain way. I can control my actions. They're just a part of the cycle. For examples of this, like when we yell at our spouse, let's say, in front of our kids, and then we say, well, I was mad. You said something rude. Okay, but I could have waited and told him later that, hey, that was upsetting, or that made me feel X, Y, Z. But I didn't wait. I let the feeling take over instead of me saying, I can wait. I can go take a break. I can go take a walk, whatever. Or when again, with the texting example, because that's so easy to do with phones, I say someone tells you something upsetting and you just text back something rude or something hurtful or whatever. And again, you tell them, sorry, I was feeling upset. And you're trying to blame it on the feeling. But we all know that you chose to text that. And again, the feeling is not in charge here. And so, ultimately, first you have, like we said, you know what you're feeling. The next step, okay, what am I going to do about it? How am I going to regulate it? And then the larger umbrella of emotional intelligence, which, you know, a lot of new scholars are saying how the Prophet ﷺ had such beautiful emotional intelligence, is because it's not just about you. There's people around you in your life every day that you interact with, and when you're able to regulate your own experience and your emotions, and you also understand other